If you've ever been told you're too old, too young, too uneducated, too qualified, too late, too early, or simply too much to follow your dreams, this video is for you. May you chase your goals until they become your past achievements. Welcome back to Black Joy Interrupted, the celebrated series where we document Black excellence, Black resilience, and the victories that reshape what's possible for our community. Before we begin, please like this video and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And if you find this video inspiring, please share it with someone who needs a reminder that their story isn't over. Today's story is about redemption and reinvention, the kind built through discipline, community, and a refusal to accept the limits placed on Black lives. Because Black joy isn't accidental. It's engineered through struggle, strategy, and survival. It's what emerges when we turn obstacles into outcomes. Some Black people challenge stereotypes, and in doing so, they challenge the world to rethink what it believes about Black potential. The man at the center of today's story didn't just defy expectations. He rewrote the trajectory of his life in a way few ever do. This is his story. Before the awards, before the lab coat, before the classrooms, and before the title doctor, there was a young Black boy growing up in Ferguson, Missouri. Yes, the same Ferguson that later became a national symbol after the murder of Mike Brown. A place where police encounters have shaped entire generations of Black kids. Stanley's early life was full of love, but it was also surrounded by challenges that were bigger than him. By the time he was 14, he was already pulled into the legal system. Arrests, charges, labels, and expectations placed on him that had nothing to do with who he actually was. By his early 20s, he'd accumulated 2 felony drug convictions and was sitting in a courtroom being told by a prosecutor that he was hopeless, that he'd never be anything, and that his life would always cycle between freedom and prison. The prosecutor wanted 20 years to life. Let that sink in. A whole life written off before it ever had the chance to bloom.
Essentially looking for proteins within the cell, so we've extracted protein from the cells.
Stanley Andrisse knows his science. He's a well-respected researcher at Johns Hopkins School of Medicine. He's got 2 sets of letters behind his name, his MBA and his PhD. But those credentials didn't come easily.
I got involved in making decisions that weren't the greatest.
Andrisse is proof you can't judge a book by its cover.
I graduated, and almost immediately I graduated and went right off into prison. It was devastating, you know. I had this seemingly kind of good things going on, but then, you know, I'm a 2-time convicted drug felon, and I'm sitting in prison.
He was sentenced to 10 years on drug trafficking charges and expected to serve 66% of that time.
But life had a different plan. Stanley ended up serving a 10-year sentence in a maximum security prison. He talks openly about the emotional weight of that period, the silence, the isolation, the reality of being locked away while the world keeps spinning without you. That's where another story started unfolding. While he was incarcerated, his father was battling type 2 diabetes, a long fight. More than 30 hospitalizations, more than 30 surgeries, decline after decline. Then, during Stanley's sentence, his father passed away. Grief inside a cage is a different kind of pain. You can't run anywhere. You can't escape it. You have to sit with it every day. But that loss became a turning point.
While he was away, his father's type 2 diabetes got worse. His limbs had to be amputated. His father's loss spurred him to action.
That was extremely, difficult to sit and kind of be, sit in my little cell and be more or less helpless to coping with my family. My dad is what has given me the inspiration and the motivation to pursue and study diabetes.
He started reading everything he could about diabetes. He read his first scientific article from inside a prison cell, then another, then another. The disease that took his father sparked a new purpose. He realized, I want to understand this. I want to help people. I want to honor my father by pursuing science. That spark became the beginning of a new path. His transformation didn't happen in a vacuum. To understand the weight of what Dr. Andrisse overcame, you have to understand the system he was trapped inside. Because here's the truth, Black boys in America don't start at the same starting line as everyone else. Let's look at the numbers. Black boys make up only 15% of the youth in the U.S., yet they account for nearly 35% of juvenile arrests. Black men are incarcerated at 5 times the rate of white men. By age 18, 1 in 4 black boys will be arrested at least once. By age 30, 1 in 3 black men will have spent time behind bars, a pipeline designed with failure in mind. And that pipeline has a twin, the education system. While 55% of white men enroll in college after high school, only about 33% of black men do. And of those who enroll, black men have the lowest 6-year graduation rate of any race or gender group in the entire country, not because they aren't capable, because the system was never designed to support them. So when a black man enters prison in his teens, statistics don't predict success, they predict repetition. Yet this is the backdrop Stanley was fighting through, a system engineered to catch him, hold him, and return him. The fact that he chose a different path doesn't make him an exception. It makes him an example of what happens when brilliance survives the barriers built to bury it. Transformation doesn't happen alone. While in the system, Stanley connected with Dr. Barry Bode, a biologist and professor who saw past the record and recognized potential. A mentor who said, "There's more for you." That relationship changed everything. When Stanley was released, he applied to graduate schools across the country. Rejection after rejection poured in. Then one acceptance arrived. St. Louis University said yes. That yes didn't just open a door, it rewrote an entire destiny.
Andrisse was fortunate to qualify for a drug rehab program in a minimum security prison that would end his sentence within months of completion. When he finished, he was prepared to further his education, but he wasn't prepared for what came next.
After being rejected from everywhere, and it was coming close to me being released, and I had just gotten nothing but rejection.
That's when it began to sink in. He was now a convicted felon who would be required to disclose that on applications.
The wording says, if you've been convicted, check the box, and please explain the charges and the conviction. But for me and other people like me, it literally brings this feeling in your gut that, you read it and you instantly get the feeling that they don't want me. This, why even continue the application? Because I know what comes next.
Andrisse was lucky. A major break followed. He was accepted at St. Louis University.
I finished top of my class within the PhD program, the highest GPA. Everyone accepted and kind of knew me, and I both, academically and otherwise. But they didn't know me because they didn't know I had a criminal conviction, that I was a 2-time drug convicted felon.
Before we celebrate where Stanley landed, we have to understand the landscape he came from, because his transformation didn't happen in a vacuum. It happened against the data. Let's start with this. Black men make up only about 6% of the U.S. population, yet represent nearly 40% of the prison population. A system designed to target you will always claim you failed it. But the truth is simple. The system fails black boys long before they ever step foot inside a courtroom. And let's talk about education. Black male college enrollment has been declining for years. At many universities, black men represent less than 5% of the entire student body. When you narrow that down to graduate programs, the numbers drop even lower. And when you narrow that to medical schools, we reach a crisis most people don't want to name. There are fewer black male doctors today than there were in the 1970s. Let that sit for a second. 50 years of progress. And the pipeline for black men in medicine has gone backwards. So when you see a formerly incarcerated black man, a man with 2 felony convictions, a man from Ferguson, a man the system tried to bury at 20 years old, become a tenured medical school professor, you're not just witnessing a personal victory. You're witnessing a statistical defiance, a disruption of the story America tells about black boys, a crack in a system that counts us out before we even begin. That's why his journey matters, because it shows exactly what's possible when a black man gets access, gets mentorship, gets community, and gets a chance to rewrite the page instead of being written off. And make no mistake, he is the exception because the system is not designed to let more men like him through. He went on to earn a PhD in physiology in 2014, specializing in insulin resistance and diabetes. Then he completed a fellowship in pediatric endocrinology at Johns Hopkins in 2017. Today he's a tenured associate professor at Howard University College of Medicine, a scientist studying insulin-resistant states, a researcher awarded multiple National Institute of Health grants, a mentor to black medical students, a national speaker, a builder of community, all of that from a man who was told he'd never amount to anything, all from a man the system tried to bury. This is what black excellence looks like when it's given room to breathe. To understand the scale of Dr. Andrisse's achievement, we have to zoom out again. Because here's the part that rarely gets discussed. Black men are disappearing from medicine, not figuratively, literally. In 1978, more black men entered U.S. medical schools than in 2014. Even today, the numbers barely move. And yet, black men have some of the highest rates of chronic illnesses. Black families experience some of the worst health disparities. Black patients benefit enormously from black doctors, from higher trust, better communication, and improved outcomes. So when the pipeline dries up, communities suffer. Now place Stanley in that reality. A black man who's formerly incarcerated, has 2 felony drug convictions, who was rejected by school after school, entering a field where black men make up only about 2% of all physicians. And he didn't just become a doctor. He became a scientist, a researcher, a professor, and a medical school leader trusted to train the next generation. He walked into a field that has historically pushed black boys out and carved out space where the system swore he didn't belong. So when people call his journey inspiring, they're missing the full picture. This isn't just inspiration. This is structural resistance. This is what happens when a black man refuses to let systems define the ceiling of his intelligence, his purpose, or his future. And for every Dr. Andrisse that makes it, there are thousands who could, if they had the support, resources, and opportunity he fought for. That's why representation is not a luxury, it's a lifeline. And that's why stories like his cannot be treated as anomalies. They must become invitations. Invitations to build pipelines that work. Invitations to create access that lasts. Invitations to make sure black men are not ghosts in the world of medicine. Because when black doctors increase, black health outcomes improve. And when black excellence is allowed to rise, entire communities rise with it. But he didn't stop with his own success. Dr. Andrisse founded the nonprofit From Prison Cells to PhD, also known as P2P. The mission is simple: move people from conviction to contribution. The organization helps formerly incarcerated people apply to college, earn degrees, receive mentorship, get scholarships, complete internships, and rebuild lives that the system tried to erase. To date, P2P has supported more than 1,000 justice-impacted scholars across 35 states and internationally. Their work reduces recidivism, restores confidence, and creates access to education for people who've been locked out for too long. Dr. Andrisse always says, "You're not alone. There's a community ready to help you rebuild." That's black joy in action. That's black healing. That's black transformation. Whenever a story like this goes public, people rush to call it rare, exceptional, a miracle, a 1 in a million outcome. And on the surface, that sounds like a compliment, but look a little closer and you'll see something else. Calling black success rare is one of the oldest ways to normalize the barriers that make it rare in the first place. There is nothing genetically unusual about Black brilliance. There is something structurally unusual about Black opportunity. Stanley didn't rise because he's superhuman. He rose because he made a choice at a breaking point. And then he found a system of support at the exact moment he needed it. A mentor who said, "Try." A school that said, "Yes." A community that said, "We got you." A purpose that refused to die. Imagine how many people could take the same path if those same supports existed consistently. We love to treat pressure like it automatically builds diamonds, but pressure also crushes coal. And for every person who beats the odds, there are thousands whose potential never sees daylight because the odds were never designed for them to win. That's why his journey matters. It proves two things at the same time. One, with the right support, transformation is absolutely possible. Two, without that support, the system predicts the outcome before the child even starts. Stanley is proof of possibility, not proof of exception. His story doesn't say, "Look how far one person made it." It says, "Look how far thousands could go if the barriers were removed." And that brings us back to the heart of Black Joy Celebrated. We don't spotlight these stories to say, "Be like him." We spotlight them to say, he is the example of what happens when opportunity meets determination. So imagine what our communities could be if opportunity wasn't rationed. We highlight excellence not to separate it from the community, but to remind the community of what's already alive within us. There's something deeper here. This story isn't just about a man going from a prison cell to a PhD. It's about what happens when a system tries to define you, but your spirit refuses to listen. It's about the power of mentors, the power of community, the power of grief that becomes purpose, the power of Black brilliance, and the power of redemption. It's a reminder that every time society throws a label on us, we create a new one. Every time a door closes, we build our own. Every time they expect our failure, we exceed every expectation. Dr. Andrisse is proof that the system may attempt to cage our bodies, but it doesn't get to cage our future. When you look at Stanley's journey, it becomes clear that this isn't just a story about individual triumph. It's a blueprint for what's possible when access and opportunity are treated like a right instead of a privilege. Because here's the bigger truth. Systems create outcomes, and when those systems shift, outcomes shift with them. We see it everywhere. When schools get funded, graduation rates rise. When mentorship programs grow, hope grows with them. When we invest in people instead of policing them, communities transform. When barriers fall, futures open. But the opposite is true too. When funding dries up, pathways close. When education becomes expensive, mobility shrinks. When policies tighten gates instead of opening doors, whole generations get redirected into struggle instead of possibility. That's why stories like his matter. They remind us that Black brilliance isn't the exception, access is. And right now, as we watch policies strip resources from graduate nursing programs, cap educational funding, cut DEI, and shrink the very pathways that helped people like Stanley rise, it becomes even more urgent to protect and expand every route toward our collective advancement. Because if a single acceptance letter could change the entire trajectory of one man's life, imagine what could happen if thousands of acceptance letters were within reach. Imagine if mentorships weren't scarce. Imagine if education weren't a luxury. Imagine if Black futures weren't forced to rely on luck and loopholes. Stanley's story proves what happens when doors open. The real question is, how many more lives could be changed if those doors stayed open? This isn't just a celebration. It's a call to action, a reminder that the fight for access in healthcare, education, tech, politics, and every field is a fight for our future. And it's a reminder of something else. Every time the system tries to shrink our opportunities, Black communities find ways to build new ones. That's the pattern. That's the legacy. That's the joy they can't interrupt. Stories like his remind us that Black boys in places like Ferguson aren't hopeless. Our communities need investment, not incarceration. Mentorship and education change lives. Redemption is real. Joy is powerful. Healing is possible. Black futures cannot be predicted by statistics. Dr. Andrisse didn't just survive the system, he transformed it. He created pathways for others to walk through. And he took what was meant to break him and turned it into purpose. That's Black joy celebrated. Before you go, let's sit with this. How many more Dr. Andrisses are sitting in cells right now, waiting for someone to tell them their story isn't over? How many young people in Ferguson, Chicago, Memphis, Atlanta, Dallas, Compton, Baltimore, and every city in between just need one mentor to change everything? Black joy isn't passive, it's active. It's what we build, what we protect, and what we pass down. If this story moved you, drop a fire emoji or a black heart emoji in the comments so we know you're rocking with us. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to believe in themselves again. You've been watching Black Joy Celebrated, where our stories shine, our brilliance rises, and our joy refuses to be interrupted.